Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate so many wonderful people across the great state of Mississippi who are working so hard to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. Listen, I had the opportunity, you've heard me mention this. We had a big fundraiser where a bunch of bands and artists, musicians who are in public life, me included, I play drums, came together to this wonderful event at Centennial Plaza on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And it was a big fundraiser for a foundation that was put together by the mayors of Gulfport and Biloxi. And the mayor, Pascagoula, incidentally, was also there. He sung. But anyway, it was a Better Way to Give Foundation. It was an issue. We have had an issue in coastal Mississippi with panhandling, professional panhandlers. And this is an effort to show people there's a better way to give. And so anyway, we went to this event. And while we were there, I had the opportunity, this chance opportunity to meet someone. And his name is Kevin Popović. And he's a creative strategist, an educator, an author. He's known as the idea guy. But Jamie Miller, who is the executive director for the Gulf Coast Business Council, introduced me to him. He was their featured speaker at the State of the Coast address. And I loved, I did a lot of this when I was working with Knight Ritter. We would bring people in from the outside who were thought provokers, who, in Kevin's case, he has as you'll hear here in just a second, has a great background about how to solve problems, how to frame problems, how to think about things creatively. He's given a lot of thought to artificial intelligence and how that impacts our world and so on. But I think he was a great selection for the Business Council to kind of get an outsider's view about the changing world that we live in. And so Kevin and I met, and we decided that we needed to come back together again. And so that's what today is. You're going to have an opportunity with me to get to know Kevin Popović better, and we're going to talk about what he does, where he came from, and we're going to talk specifically about how artificial intelligence is changing our world and how we better get on board rapidly. So, without any further ado, let me welcome Kevin to the show. How you doing, my friend?
Thanks, Ricky. Great to be here this morning. Good to see you as well, Kyle.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Kyle's the man, as we often say, Kevin. Without a producer like him, I wouldn't be here. We've done like 1,500 plus conversations in the past 5 years. I would not be here without Cammie, who you met, and then Kyle to be the producer of this show. You got to have great support. That's the key to success, isn't it?
It sure is, and you're blessed to have good people around you, Ricky.
Yeah, I am for sure. Listen, let's do this. When you talk to people about what you do, we're gonna actually retrace some of your steps. But okay. But I thought, what's your elevator speech on how you tell people who you are?
Well, my name's Kevin Popović. I'm the idea guy, and I help people create new ideas that solve business problems.
That's a
then
simple...
I try to be quiet and see what they say.
Well, you've got an interesting background, man. You've been 30 years involved in communication and innovation. You've been an advisor to companies, to nonprofits, to schools. You've done some heavy lifting with places like San Diego State University. You get your inspiration from a beach. And so I guess when you were in coastal Mississippi, you felt a bit at home.
A little bit. Y'all got a beach down there. The surf is not what I might like it to be, but I guess you could work on that.
Yeah, listen, if you go up to the Barrier Islands, you'd see what you're used to seeing: beautiful water and waves and all of that. The Mississippi Sound's never going to give us the kind of waves that you're used to in California.
There's some of those new water parks. I know there's one down, I want to say it's in Austin, but you got some of those little water parks that are you got little wave makers in them now. So that might be some of the new diversification that we talk about as far as your entertainment down there.
Okay, let's retrace some steps. You were born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you kind of went on a bit of a mission that ultimately landed you in California. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. I grew up in what's known as Crescent, Pennsylvania, which is a great little neck of the woods. Our family had been there for a generation, and most of my family grew up working at the steel mill. Jones and Lockton Steel was a big deal in my neighborhood. Most of the people in our neighborhood worked there. My grandfather ran a crane mill, a crane in the tin mill. My mother worked as a key punch board operator in the data center back in the day when they used to do those big old cards. Y'all remember those when they punch little holes in them and the big wheels went round and round? Yeah, she did all that stuff. And my dad was a professor of marketing and management. So I had quite a little mix of growing up. And as I say, it was a great place to grow up. A lot of traditional values. I learned a lot of good things. They gave me a good foundation for becoming an entrepreneur. But I also learned that it was a big world, and I wanted to go see it and could try and make my mark in it. So I got started in Pittsburgh, but I knew it wasn't going to end there.
So what brought you to California?
Really doing business in Pittsburgh. And I'll tell you, when you're a creative kid in Pittsburgh, there's a lot that helps you become a creative kid. My grandfather grew up in the Depression, so they didn't throw a damn thing out. And my grandfather had everything organized in little boxes. And when anything went south, he could fix it, right? Or he could make something to fix that out of the parts that he had. So I learned a lot of ingenuity from there. My mother, in addition to having a technology job, also was a crafty woman. So she made arts and crafts, ran a fabric store as a part-time job. So I had that. And at my grandmother's Sunday table, my grandmother sold shoes at Jackson's Shoes in Hopewell, Pennsylvania. So she would tell me stories of retail. My dad would tell me stories of marketing and management. My uncle was an international business consultant, and he would tell me stories. So at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, I'm getting marketing lessons and retail lessons. And, I've got a creative grandfather, I have a creative mother. And when my parents divorced when I was 9 years old, my mom was left to raise 3 boys. And oftentimes, as young kids would be, they would want something, right? Your mother, my mother always said, she goes, I try to provide the things that you need. If you want something different, you got to go out and make your own money and you go and earn it. So at a young age, I was raking leaves. I was shoveling snow. I was doing all kinds of things to make money and go buy the things that I wanted that I saw that was a good investment for me. So that was a good way to grow up, learning the value of a dollar and learning that work hard can get you the things that you want in life. But when I got older, I looked at how I was going to go about doing that after college. Because I'll tell you a quick funny related story. When I had a communications degree, and when I was graduating, I was on the 5-year plan. There, and I got approached by a professor who says, "Hey, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I'm tired of being in school," because I was anxious. I was ready to go see the world, make a dollar, make a name for myself. And he's like, "Hey, we've had luck getting some people on the television and from communications, and there's a station down in Tennessee that's looking for a weatherman. Are you interested?" And quite naively, I said, "The real power is behind the camera. I'm not interested." And I went on my journey. In retrospect, I should have taken that job because I think being on camera is a lot easier in retrospect than being behind the camera. And that was one of the first missteps I might have had, Ricky. I'm not sure. You have to tell me, as a guy who's been making his living on the camera and done a lot behind the camera, we'll have to chat at length. Which is the wiser of the two choices?
Well, entrepreneurially, it's interesting that you ended up kind of like carving your niche around creativity and innovation in a very significant way. I mean, the Creativity and Innovation Center that you're part of, the Idea Lab that you're part of. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll start to transition the conversation into how the world is changing so rapidly, and we can embrace it. And a lot of companies are embracing it. Some companies are resisting, but those that are resisting are going to find themselves in serious trouble soon, because those that are embracing it are understanding that AI doesn't take over. It really emboldens you to raise your bar and improve your business in ways you're not even really, probably not even completely thinking about right now. When we come back on that other side, we'll continue our conversation with Kevin Popović, and we'll get into some of the journey that led him to, really carving out a niche around creativity and innovation. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. We're visiting with Kevin Popović, who's a creative strategist and educator. He's an author. He's known as the idea guy. He's been involved in a lot of different things, but most of it is about this snowball going down the hill that would be labeled innovation and creativity. And there's a lot of pieces to this. It's manifested itself in so many different ways over the years. Certainly within the guise of San Diego State University, where he has been involved in creativity and innovation, a Zip Idea Lab. There's a lot going on there. Then he's obviously a featured speaker. He worked with executives and entrepreneurs and educators. Once he sort of, chiseled out his niche, he's continued to evolve, and artificial intelligence, as we'll get into in just a second, has really created an opportunity for him to put his work on steroids. He's not either or; it's together. They can be on steroids. You think that's pretty accurate description of you?
Yeah, I think that So I'm a bit of an all ball. I'll tell you, my ex-wife used to, we'd go out, we meet couples like couples do, right? And then somebody, you're meeting people, and somebody would go, "And what do you do?" And then my ex-wife would just look at me. She goes, "You want to handle this one?" Because it was difficult to really explain. Like, I don't have a normal job, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a banker. I'm not a farmer. I don't sell cars, right? I help people come up with new ideas to solve business problems, and that's not a normal job. I think that that's one of the challenges that business has, is there's no real role for that. Like today, you have some roles like chief innovation officer, director of an idea lab, something like. But even those, people really don't know what you do, So it's hard if people don't understand it. They don't play your game. They don't ever call you, right? It's a unique person that really understands what I do and how I help. And I know some of the burden's on me to explain that, but there's just not a lot of people that are going to Google and looking for an idea guy, right? Or, guy to help me fix my problems and stuff like that. It's not the same thing. When a pipe breaks, you call a plumber, right? If I have a tax issue, I call a CPA, right? But who do you call when you have a business problem? And that's been an interesting exploration in and of itself, Ricky.
Well, what's interesting about looking at your background, I had the opportunity to co-lead the strategic planning effort for Knight Ridder, the company that used to own the Sun Herald newspaper. At the time, the second largest newspaper company in America. I spent a lot of time in San Jose, but also traveling across the country at our various companies. We owned Philadelphia Inquirer, for example, and Miami Herald, and Kansas City Star, and San Jose Mercury News, and a large number, including the Sun Herald. And we brought people like you in to really, energize the group with thinking out of the box. So one of the things we ultimately did in our company was we thought a lot about understanding where we are as a company. So, essentially a current process analysis. We often said you can't go to where you're going if you don't know where you are now. So understanding the numbers, understanding the technology, understanding the people, understanding the challenges, understanding the markets, all those things. What's the current situation? And then what we do, we set that aside for a bit. And what would come out of that is an awareness. Man, we've got some challenges over here. There's some competitive threats over there. We're not engaging technology the way we need to. And we were doing central databases back in the late 1990s, installing some very significant stuff that ultimately obviously is moved into cloud technology. But we really embraced technology in a big way back in those days. But we set it all aside and we said, okay, now what is possible? What are other industries doing to solve these same kind of problems? What are how do we want to address going forward? So we can't go to where we want to go if we don't know where we are now. And then understanding best practices and all of that. You could probably come in and lead the whole process. You probably think strategically, just very similar to what I just said. Or maybe you're the guy that's coming in to challenge the team to really think out of the box. And of course, thinking out of the box today involves also aligning with where AI can take you as it relates to thinking, because a lot of it's not to chance anymore. You can pretty much find out pretty quickly, what the kind of things you need to be thinking about. But where do you get injected?
Usually people call me like when there's a situation. I often joke. You remember the Pulp Fiction movie, and you have the wolf that came out like he's the fixer. Yeah, oftentimes I feel like I'm the wolf. Right. And I got to come in. I'm like, gentlemen, from what I understand, we don't have a lot of time. If this happens, I understand that would be a bad situation. Let me make sure I understand what's going on. And there's a fuse on a situation. That's usually when I get brought in. More often now, Ricky, I'm getting brought in when somebody is really, they have something that is important to them, and they want a third-party outside objective leader, because it can be strategically challenging, as I'm sure you've seen, to be the convener. Like, for instance, in the situations that you've dealt with, I've got to believe that when stuff is going down in your region and somebody says, hey, I think we should do this, you get a lot of people that says, hey, who are you? And why are you the one that says we should be doing this? Right? There's like a little power control type of thing. So the convener has to be real careful about how you're contacting people, and, you got to manage a lot of that stuff. Well, with me, it's a lot of, I can ask questions that others can't. I can say things that others can't. I'm the new guy, be like, hey, I didn't know. I'm just trying to figure out, So I think there's a lot of benefit to bringing a third party, facilitator, if you will, into a situation, even if the facilitator doesn't know a damn thing about your neighborhood. Sometimes that could be to your advantage, because you don't get wrapped up in the same politics. You don't say, well, we can't do this because I know these 11 other things that'll never make it happen. So today I'm seeing more planning. Historically, it has been, there's something going down and we got to get somebody in here who we think can fix it. And that's usually when I get a call.
So what we,
but I'll tell you,
sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we always had an outside facilitator that we would hire to help with process, and keeping the trains running on time and bringing people together and being sort of maybe the naysayer in the group. So folks like companies like Deloitte or Boston's Consulting Group in the early days of the re-engineering process, CSC Index was involved with us. But, having access to some of the smartest minds in the industry who've seen other industries and how they've solved the problems. Because what's interesting is, from a technology point of view, from a human resource point of view, from a leadership point of view, from a process point of view, however you want to look at it, industries are very similar. What tends to be different is culture and products and maybe the competitive threats that you face. But having the benefit of someone who's seen these other companies and then comes in and they can help you see that the problem that you're having may be actually a really big problem, or maybe it's not as big a problem as you think it is. But I can see where you're coming in. I see the kind of situations typically you'd be brought into. There might be, at least from the CEO's perspective, maybe a bit of a burning platform, and we've got to address this pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's a fortune cookie I got years ago that I still keep, and I move it from monitor to monitor to remind me, that says none of us know as much as all of us. And that's really had been proven, Ricky, as you had recounted, that bouncing around all these different industries. I've been there, I've seen there. I've worked with so many different types of leaders at different sizes of companies, across different spectrums and industries at different stages in growth. That I learned a lot from each of these different people in different ways. And as much as some industries want to say, well, we're unique and nobody's like us and our company's different, it's not true. There's stereotypes for a reason, because enough of the same people are experiencing the same types of things or do the same types of things. So I think there's only so many unique different types of companies, and most are not so unlike so many others who have had similar challenges in the past. And I think it's important for leadership to understand that yes, like I'll give you, for instance, shipbuilding. I've never worked in shipbuilding. Right? I have worked in industrial manufacturing and heavy equipment. And somebody tells, well, you got to know this about shipbuilding. I'm sure there's a lot to know about shipbuilding, but I'm also sure that I could contribute an awful lot from other industries outside of shipbuilding that would benefit shipbuilding immensely. And that's where I get back to, none of us know as much as all of us. And you really need to have leadership in a position and of a mindset, really, to understand that to be a true fact.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the presentation you gave to the Gulf Coast Business Council, I saw where you went through a series of slides about we've been here before, and obviously one of the examples was shipbuilding. But it's true. I mean, shipbuilding. Listen, Ingalls Shipbuilding here in coastal Mississippi is on the cutting edge in so many respects, and you can bet your bottom dollar they're already embracing AI, particularly as inventory management, for example, and the opportunities around that. And where's robotics headed? I mean, certainly they're doing some stuff now in the welding and other areas, but there's going to be more that hits them because advanced manufacturing is changing so rapidly. When we come back on the other side, we're just going to continue. I want to talk about the innovation funnel that you created and the creative confidence assessment that you did and how that sort of empowers the work that you do. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. We're having an interesting conversation with Kevin Popović, who is a creative strategist and educator, author. He's in California. He recently gave a keynote address for the State of the Coast address for the Gulf Coast Business Council. And what he has to say about solving problems and innovation and creativity and AI applications applies to anybody who's listening. And if you don't think it applies to you, you certainly will think that before we get done talking today. But hey, before we went to break, though, I mentioned your innovation funnel and your creative confidence assessment. It seems to me that what you've done is you developed a process that you can lead people through to help them ultimately get better ideas and solve problems. But I'll let you say it with your words.
Yeah, and I'll take them in order. A lot of the programs that I develop are based on best practices, experiences, things from the business community. And what I found is that some people aren't prepared to enter into a process, and that's how I came up with a creative confidence assessment. I was teaching a class at San Diego State in the Department of College of Business. And by the way, Provost Lance Nail sends his regards, Ricky, from USM. That's where I met Lance when he was over at San Diego State. And I was teaching creativity and innovation. And it was funny because my creative friends were like, you mean you're trying to teach account executives how to be creatives? Which when you come from the business, it's funny because, account executives historically are of the creative mindset. So, but what I found is that over a 16-week program, I could improve the creativity output of my students. Like on week 1, I gave them an assessment, week 8, week 16, and I got a happy graph of data that went up, and it was their feedback as far as their confidence and their grades both went up over time, which led me to conclude that, the program was making them more creative than they were at the beginning of my class, which every student wants to make every teacher wants to make their students better. So when I started looking at this for the idea guy, and when I would have clients to say, I don't know if our team is really ready for that. We're really not creative. We're in these non-creative roles. I said, well, let's do a bit of a measurement. So I created the confidence assessment to really measure where an individual believes they are today. Because confidence, like anything, right? Confidence, Rick, you guys were talking about baseball and Kyle's talking about soccer, with the kids. If you don't believe you can do it, you're usually not very good at it. Right. And it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I wanted to give people a better understanding of when we say, are you creative? That they understand what creative means. And it's not just that I can draw a pretty picture, right? It's other things like, how do I manage fear and stress? Am I open to feedback on my ideas? Can I get behind somebody else's idea, even if it's not my idea? And things along that line. So it gave a bit of a greater understanding to people about what it means to be creative. It gave them some scoring, a score from 0 to 55 about where you were on a kind of a creative scale. And based on this score, it aligned you with a persona. Most of the people that scored this are these types, have these characteristics. Other people that scored here, they have these other characteristics. And we give them a guide, help them better understand where they are and some of the things that they can do to improve their confidence, which ultimately will improve their creativity because they're going to feel like they can do it. They'll try more often. It'll get better over time. So I do encourage any of our listeners that you want to take it. It's available. It's a free tool on my website at theideaguide.us. You look for a creative confidence assessment. You answer 11 questions and it tells you a little bit more that you need to be about yourself in order to improve your creative confidence.
I shared this last week on my show, but John F. Kennedy once said that we can have faith in the future only if we have faith in ourselves. That really applies to just about anything. We can have faith in the future only if we have faith in ourselves. It's interesting that you talked about creative because in the newspaper and the online business, the digital media business that I was involved with for all my career, the sales account executives were often having to not just be salespeople, but also creative people. They weren't selling a widget that somebody else made. They were having to listen to the customer and adapt not only campaigns, digital campaigns or newspaper ads, but also creative ads. So they were having to be creative as well. So we were constantly assessing that. And we tried to assess it during the hiring process. This tool, in fact, back in the days that we used to struggle with this, would have been a great tool for us. I think about Myers-Briggs, for example, the assessment Myers-Briggs that says someone, let's say, one of the dimensions is extrovert versus introvert. And the way that Myers-Briggs described that is where you get your energy from. If you get your energy internally, then you're an introvert. It doesn't mean that you don't have extroverted qualities. It's just about where you get your energy from. An extrovert, they get their energy from other people. So the point that Myers-Briggs said is, what is your fallback? What is your initial position? And it gives you some sense of these characteristics on these various dimensions, and then gives you the ability to kind of see how you mesh with other people. Creativity is kind of the same thing. Some people may have a propensity to be more creative, and some you may think are not creative at all. But it can be a learned behavior, can it?
It sure can. We can definitely improve the creativity. I kind of think of it like a muscle, and I'll take a little bit from my TEDx, right? I did this TEDx called "How Creativity Can Change the World One Bad Drawing at a Time," and in it, I explain what happened to your creativity because the statistics are 5-year-olds score as 98% divergent thinkers, which means 5-year-olds can come up with multiple solutions to a single problem very easily. Do you guys have any idea what the percentage is of adults, right? How many adults are divergent thinkers? And I'll give you a hint. It's a single digit.
Oh, wow.
Right? And it's horrible. So what happened to our creativity, Ricky? So if when we're at 5 at 98%, and I think you're coming in at 6% for most adults, right after the age of 25, what the hell happened to our creativity? Right. And the punchline is education. And let me tell you how it happened. Yeah. So when we're kids, right, we're running around, and everybody usually has this experience, right, where we're 4, 5, 6 years old and we're drawing pictures. You got crayons, or look, mommy, I made this for you. and your mom loves you so much, Ricky, she's like, oh, Ricky, that's so nice, right? And and she gives you praise, right? So you draw more pictures. Mom, look what I drew this one. And oh, Ricky, that's so nice. And what's your mama do when she loves those pictures, Ricky? Like every other mama does. What'd she do with those pictures?
No, she puts them on the refrigerator.
Puts them on the refrigerator. Every family has it, no matter culture or where I've been. Everybody, even my friends in Europe, they're like, oh, you put it on the fridge. Exactly. And then your dad comes home and your mom's like, hey, look at what Ricky did on the fridge. And your dad's like, what the hell was that? She smacks you like, it's a pony. Right? Oh yeah, that's great. And then you make one for your dad. He's like, oh great. Now your dad has to put it up somewhere. Right. But you got this positive reinforcement over time. And when we were kids, Ricky, we believed we could do anything. And when we draw stuff, we saw things in it. The future, maybe not everybody else saw it, but we saw it, right? And and that positive reinforcement, it just wanted us to do more. And that's why you have all those bad drawings laid over your house, and your mom probably kept most of them. Now, when we go to school, what happens? Well, those other kids had a little success on their refrigerator as well, right? And then you always get one girl, it tends to be the girls that tend to be a little more creative than the guys. I remember this girl, Susie. And Susie, like everybody loves Susie's pictures, right? Well, now I'm feeling bad about drawing my pictures because everybody likes Susie's better than mine. So it's a little tougher of a room. And then your teacher says, well, we're going to draw, but now you have to stay on the paper. Now you have to stay inside the lines. Now you have to use the right colors. And now we're going to start giving grades on this stuff. Now there's ramifications for your choices, right? You start making bloody red bunnies and you're going to see the guidance counselor. They want to have a little sit down with you in the Ferris before this goes too far. So you don't have that same creative freedom and expression that you did as a kid because education doesn't reward creativity. They want compliance. Right. And those are two very, very different things. There was a song by Harry Chapin called Flowers Are Red, and other lies about creativity. And in it, he tells a story about his son that goes to school and he's drawing flowers of a certain color. And the teacher says, no, those are wrong. And through the story, the lyrics just tell the story of the teacher beating the kid down where the kid just gives up because you're right. It's only one way. There's no variance. There's, creativity is not a thing anymore. And that's where I try to really combat people. Most of my workshops, like even the ones I'm doing at USM, are about trying to get people to remember what it was like to be a kid when we dreamed and we wished, right? And we believed anything was possible. Right. That's the real trick for my work, Ricky, is trying to get my clients' mindset into that so that they can improve their creative muscle, so that those teams can be more productive, so that those organizations can succeed.
Well, it's so amazing hearing you think about that. As a child, I grew up with dyslexia, and I saw things in images and pictures. And I tried to describe that, really early in my life, and the teachers didn't understand it. And later in life, it became a gift. But at the time, I didn't get it. But this notion of pigeonholing people and boxing them into these boxes and just zapping their innovative characteristics out of them. And, someone like you has the opportunity to bring it back. AI, what a great enabler AI is to bring this out. We'll talk about that for the last segment when we continue the conversation after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show. What an interesting conversation. I think it's going to be the first of many that I'm going to have with Kevin Popović. He is a creative strategist, an educator, and an author. He's known as the Idea Guy. And we were talking about how this whole notion around creativity. I want to shift gears real quick because I want to make sure we get one thing talked about and plant some seeds in people's minds. But listen, Roland Weeks, who was my mentor, he was the former publisher of the Sun Herald. I remember giving him a report once, and I made really good grades in English in school and in college, not in high school. I barely made it out of high school, but in college I did quite well. And I gave him a report once that was probably 6 or 7 pages long, and I was so proud of it. He gave it back to me, and he had crossed it out and made all these notes, and eventually just wrote, say what you said in 6 or 7 pages in 2 pages. And then, of course, he'd been around, professional journalists, and I was just early in my career beginning to understand that the people that I could tap into, Kevin, who, later in my career became Pulitzer Prize winning writers and editors, some of the best writers and editors in the country, in the world. His point was, when you get done, it's going to have your name on it. I don't care if it passes through 10 editors or 20 editors or one editor. Be sure that what that final product is that has your name on it is the best it can be. When I think about AI today, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, some people are reluctant to use AI. Now, you don't want AI to write your stuff for you, because you can see that. You can see when that's happened. But if AI suggests a word or a better way to say a sentence or a better way to communicate a thought, what difference does it make? Because at the end of the day, what AI is providing you is an opportunity to take your stuff and put it on steroids and make it concise and clear and creative and truthful. That's what AI is bringing to this conversation, isn't it?
It really is, and I keep telling people, AI gives you superpowers. Like one of the things that I had to address at the keynote for GCBC was that myth that AI is coming to take your job. AI is not coming to take anybody's jobs, Ricky. You know who's coming to take your job? Somebody who knows how to use AI. And it's the same thing as when we got personal computers. You either learn how to use that business tool, or you didn't have a job because you need to know how to use that tool for your job. And it's the same thing when the internet came. People are like, oh, this World Wide Web thing. Imagine trying to do your job today without the internet and all the other little things that came in with it. So it is an opportunity for people to be more than they are. And that's the most exciting thing. The Empowering Creativity series that we're offering down at University of Southern Mississippi isn't just more AI training, because there's a lot of training that I know is going on in Mississippi. I understand that there's grants and awards, a lot of money that's put into the colleges around AI training. And I think that is a genius move on part of your state, because that is the future. That's business basics today, Ricky. That's like knowing how to get on the internet and how to use a personal computer to create a document, a spreadsheet, or a PowerPoint deck, right? So those are just business basics. What we're teaching, though, is more hands-on, that teaches professionals how to apply design thinking principles amplified by generative AI tools like ChatGPT, DALL-E, Sora, Gamma, Claude, Perplexity. There's a whole bunch of these things that I think a lot of our listeners, Ricky, haven't even heard of yet. And I'm here with you to let them know they're a real thing, and you got to get on the wagon with all this stuff, because this is today in business. And that's what we want to try to make sure that we're teaching people, teams, and organizations throughout Mississippi, is not only how to use generative AI, but how to combine it in a process that it amplifies your human intelligence. Y'all got a bunch of smart people and a lot of different energies down there, Ricky. And as I recounted in my keynote, historically, you have been creatures of change. Change comes, you adapt, you succeed. Change comes, you adapt, you succeed. This is just another opportunity for Mississippi to rise to the occasion of this new opportunity and take what's theirs. And that's the most exciting thing. There's businesses that are doing this already, and that's great, and we're welcoming those teams. But those organizations that have not done anything, we're inviting their teams to come to USM to learn how to use Gen AI, to learn the power of design thinking, and how we can empower their creativity for the success of their organizations in your region.
Hey, Kevin, how can they learn more about what this upcoming program at Southern Miss?
So USM's website and their executive education program is currently promoting that. We can share that link with listeners, but it's usm.edu/executive education/empowering creativity series. And we've got workshops at the end of July on problem identification. And then we have workshops mid-September on solution development. So you come down, we'll help you figure out what's the right problem to solve. And then in September, we'll help you come up with that big idea that makes a difference in your world.
There's so much more to talk about. Man, we haven't even scratched the surface. I think this is a good conversation to sort of establish who you are and, some opportunities going forward. But for now, until we talk again, my friend, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you.
I appreciate you, Ricky. Thank you so much. Thanks, Kyle.
You bet. Listen, have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.